Hi, it's Terrell Bryant. I'm presenting in Chapter 1, The Future of Andragogy. Just a little backdrop. Beginning of the chapter for 21 was discussing the concept of andragogy, and one of the main issues is here in the United States, we know it as a theory for adults to learn. However, in other countries, it doesn't translate the same way. They use it from pretty much multiple perspectives as reflection, analysis. They use it for different programs, as well as human resource development. Knows, however, specifically defines it or uses it as the study of education of adult learners through various forms of expression. And the biggest issue is that there is never been one clear concept of andragogy. And so due to that particular fact, it's difficult for research to have made grounds, especially from the conception of andragogy, to have made leaps and bounds in regards to research, because there is no concrete concept, especially when you talk about translating it from one place to the next, as referenced as the chapter mentioned, from the United States to other different countries such as Europe. There has been many attempts to establish a psychometrical tool to define the different principles and process designs of andragogy. One of the first ones was the Educational Orientation Questionnaire, and that was in 1975. And it did bring out one key factor, and that was that teachers are more andragogical than students are. However, it still was unable to identify and to measure every single concept, every single principle, and every single design process or process design of andragogy. The same thing followed with Educational Description Questionnaire in 1979. It was able to measure behaviors and conditions in the classroom. However, it failed to measure the 6 principles of andragogy. And then you had one in 1982, Student Orientation Questionnaire, and it helped identify instructional strategies that was useful as far as how do you implement andragogy in the classroom. What are some different instruction strategies that you can use in order to help adult learners learn? And so that questionnaire was, or that research was beneficial, but yet again it failed to measure the 6 principles of andragogy. And you will have additional research that will follow these as well, that sought out to define, or not to define, but to establish a psychometrical tool to measure whether or not andragogy is actually effective, and if so, how do you implement it in the adult learning setting. One concept that was beneficial, it was in 2009 research done, Andragogical Practices Inventory. Was that research that was conducted, that questionnaire. And one thing that it did that all the previous research has been unable to do was to validate scales for 5 out of the 6 andragogical principles. And so it was able to identify motivation, experience, need to know, readiness, and self-directedness. And so this one proved to be pretty strong as far as being able to establish some grounds in regards to research of andragogical practices, and how those things are necessarily implemented into the adult learning process. And so, like I said, that one did make leaps and bounds in regards to research. And then, in addition, it was also able to validate 6 out of the 8 andragogical process design elements. And so it was able to look at settings of learning objectives. It was able to look at common set, and it was able to look at evaluation, so how adult learners evaluated, and in what ways do adult learners feel that they gain the most based upon what type of evaluation they receive, whether it's a test, whether it's hands-on experience, or whatever the case may be. It also was able to validate prepare the learner, also able to validate designing and learning experience and learning activities. And so did the instructor rely too heavily on lecture, or did the instructor give the students maybe too much self-directness or too much leeway? And so this study, Andragogical Practice Inventory, has been the most beneficial as far as developing and creating a tool to help validate andragogy as a concept, and move it to from a theory to actually a practice. One of the leading things, or the key points that the chapter closed out with, was adapting andragogy. And so one thing we was talking about was discussing varying depending upon the situation. And one article that I looked at in regards to that was one entitled Arts-Based Learning, a New Approach to Nursing Education Using Andragogy. And this was very interesting because this nursing program essentially utilized andragogy in order to help their students get involved using art for nursing students. So they drew, they watched dramas, or they attended dramas, or they participated in dramas and things of that such to help them have intrinsic motivation, to think critically, to have a deeper inquiry of nursing and sort of how those things translate from one medium to the next. And so it's very interesting to look at how andragogy can actually be implemented in various different types of programs and degrees. And then another one was another resource that I looked at when it was talking about technology mediated learning, and pretty much how technology has sort of helped spearhead and promote and push this andragogy concept, because individuals such as ourselves who are in adult learning theories this semester, you're able to have something online that you can sort of read. It's sort of a lot of self-directed. You do the readings on your own, you watch the videos, you perform the critical reflections and things of that such, and respond to classmates. And so it's looking at how technology can help individuals push self-directed learning, having tailored learning, and connect their problems with the real world as well. And one article that I looked at for that one was Understanding the Self-Directed Online Learning Preferences, Goals, Achievements, and Challenges of MIT OpenCourseWare subscribers. And so this one talked about pretty much essentially the same thing, the pros of being able to go online and to be able to jump into a course and to have that intrinsic motivation to and that drive and that push, things that you need to possess on the forefront in order for you to be successful in that course. But the fact that you can tailor that learning around your schedule, or whatever the case may be. We have family on the outside, we have other life obligations, and then also, like I said, being able to connect those things to the real world. And here are the resources for the 2 articles that I reviewed. And once again, this was my presentation on Chapter 21, The Future of Andragogy. Thank you.